Welcome to Simple Health Radio, the podcast about recognizing medical emergencies and promoting wellness throughout your journey in life. Your host is Dr. Emran, a respected physician who's treated thousands of people just like you over the past 10 years. Listen to the show each week on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and 3 and Out Radio Network. Information provided on this show is not a substitute for professional medical advice. Always discuss your questions with your doctor or go to your nearest emergency room immediately.
Thank you so much for joining me today on Simple Health Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Emran. On today's episode, we have a very special guest. Her name is Cathy Cardio, and she is a published author. She recently had a book published called It All Matters, The Parent Project, and we are delighted to have Cathy on the show today with us. Cathy, are you there for us?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit, Cathy, about your background and your history in writing this book.
The history of writing the book was actually after my maternal grandparents had passed away. I realized that there were a lot of questions that I wished I had asked them. And unfortunately, while I couldn't change that for myself, I can change it for my kids and grandkids going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It sounds like it was a very personal background that led you to write the book.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The thing was that my aunt knew a lot of the answers. And unfortunately, when I started to realize all the questions that I had, she had also passed away. My mother, who was 8 years younger than them, doesn't remember that much. So some of these questions will unfortunately never get answered for me. But like I said, I can change it for, the next generation.
Tell us a little bit about the questions that you would have loved to ask them. Were there 2 or 3 ideas that you really wanted to get questions, answers, all that detailed, fleshed out?
Right. Well, they were married for 70 years, and it seems that nobody seems to know how they actually met or what their first date was like. I do know that my great-grandfather didn't care for my grandfather, and he told them that it would never last. He actually tried to chase him away, and 70 years later, there they were. So it's kind of funny.
Absolutely. And then more recently, were there episodes in your life personally that made you sort of connect and say, I really wish I had asked that at that time?
Yeah, you just start to realize that life goes by really quick. Actually, my best friend had been basically terminally ill her whole life. She had a major heart condition. So the secondary reason for writing this was so that she could leave the answers to her daughter, not knowing what was going to happen with her, and I thought that was the best gift that I could have given her. And she got my first copy.
Wonderful, wonderful. And then after your grandparents had passed on, were there boxes or memorabilia or something in their house that you were able to sort of archive or research?
Well, I was actually the one who got the job of cleaning out the entire household, and it was my grandmother worked for Singer, the sewing company, for many, many years. Just all the material and the yarn, and she could, sew a wedding dress if you asked her to. She was amazing like that. And aside from the fact that I wish that I had spent more time with her as far as the things that she did know. Like I can sew a button, but, her with the patterns, and she used to make clothes for everybody in the family on special occasions. Personally, she made my Sweet 16 dress. I wish that I had acquired the knowledge that she had, but I didn't realize it at the time.
I understand. Sure. And then tell me a little bit about your personal sort of growth and development. Did you go through a lot of stages of grief after they had died or after you realized that your questions are not going to be able to get answered?
I didn't go through grief per se. They lived a long, healthy life, I have to say that. And thankfully, sometimes when you're in a moment, you don't realize that the moment is special. For myself personally, I did. And there was nothing left unsaid. There were no stones unturned. So I was at peace with it. I had wished, knowing that they were married so long that, I used to say that I wish they passed the same day so that neither would ever know that the other was gone. My grandfather actually amazingly lived 8 years after her. Because usually that's not the case, they say, especially when you're together with somebody that long. But no, they were both my heroes, and I was very close to them. I was the only granddaughter for 18 years. I was also named after my grandmother. So that in itself made us close, and we moved from one neighborhood to another neighborhood, and the family followed. So they were always very involved in my life, and they were thankfully involved in my children's life. And I try to explain to my children, and they understand it now as adults, that they were so fortunate not just to hear about them or hear stories about them, but to actually get to know both of them, because most people don't really get to know their great-grandparents.
Absolutely. Well, I would agree with you on that. Yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm an ER doctor, so in the ER, we are seeing kind of a major shift in terms of family structures, and more people, younger children, are actually being raised by their grandparents or in some cases great-grandparents due to some major changes in the United States and so forth. So I have seen this before where younger generations are actually more involved in the older generations with some of their history,
right,
their medical issues and so on. And I see where you're coming from on that, definitely.
Well, I could tell you personally, everybody in my family tended to have children at, not 15, but a fairly young age. So I have to say that I was fortunate to have my parents and my grandparents, but my children at that point were adults, and there were 2 great-grandchildren at that point. So the last year of my grandfather's life, he was mentally very healthy, had some medical issues, and we had to put him in the nursing home, and he would walk around the nursing home introducing me to the people there, and he would say, "Oh, this is my granddaughter. She's a grandmother." And we had 5 generations, and I'm like, and the first time he ever said that, I was like, wow, who can say that? This is my granddaughter. She's a grandmother. and I cherish that, and we have, photos of all 5 generations, which is amazing and irreplaceable.
Wonderful. Very good. And then tell us a little bit about the book itself. So there's 3 or 4 major highlights I know that you really wanted people to be aware of. Can you sort of walk us through that a little bit?
The title, not the title, the subtitle actually, it's Live Your Life to the Fullest and Leave the Rest Behind. I feel like when you're here, you need to do the very best that you can to live your life. Now, some people may listen to what their parents say or their friends say, and while they all have their best interest in mind, you really have to live your own life. I make a big point about that. If, you have to know what your bucket list is, so to speak, and don't just create a bucket list. Write it down and actually one at a time go through it. I use the analogy that when I'm 100 years old on my deathbed, God willing, I should live that long, did I complete my bucket list? Now, nobody's going to complete 100%. We have to be realistic, but, the 2 words that I live every single day by are no regrets. Go out there. What you do today is planning for tomorrow. If there's something you really want to do, whether it's an adventure, a place you want to visit, an activity, set yourself up to be able to do those things.
Excellent. Very good. And then we talked a little bit about your wishes, that you wish you would have been able to ask more questions and get more answers. I will say I have seen a few other similar situations where some people actually just took out a tape recorder or a digital recorder at Thanksgiving or at Christmas, and when all the family was there, they actually just asked questions of the oldest member that were there, and they created what's called an oral tradition. Is that something you have seen also in your community, or after writing the book, did you find other people that did oral traditions as well?
Actually, my best friend wanted to do that. Unfortunately, she did pass like 3 months ago, so she never got the chance to. And aside from her, I had never heard of that. I think it's an amazing idea. My basis also is that there were other memoir books out there. Of course there are, but I found that it was 1 question and 3 empty, 3 blank pages, where I did about 2.5 years of research, really getting to the nitty-gritty of questions. I say it's all the questions you never thought to ask. Some of it's simple stuff. Some of it could just be your favorite food, things on that order. And some of it is more in-depth stuff, like all the little thoughts that go through your head in the middle of the day, little pet peeves that maybe nobody else knows about. When you go through the book, not only are you re-examining your whole life, you're also letting out some of the stuff that just on a daily basis, people just don't realize, like I said, the thoughts that go through your head.
Absolutely.
And you really get to know the person.
Very true. And have you had any of your readers or followers connect with you, either over the phone or in person, to get more advice on what to do next when they get a little bit stuck?
Not so much advice. I don't know that anybody's really gotten stuck, but the reviews that I have gotten from people who've purchased the book, primarily on Facebook, they tend to write me for some reason. One woman had told me I didn't want it to end. I was so sorry when it came to an end, but then she had started to do her parent project. She has 1 son, she explained to me. She said that it really made her re-examine her life, why she did certain things she did, why she made certain decisions. Had she not made the same decision, her life could have went in a totally different direction. It could be about a partner that you meet. If you didn't get a job at a certain place, you wouldn't have met them. Where would you be today? And then, say if you didn't take a job, why didn't you take it? It asks every little, it's very detailed.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. And then tell our listeners where they can actually get a copy of your book and the title again of your book, please.
The title is It All Matters, The Parent Project. It's not just for people with children, by the way. It's for obviously anybody who has a parent. I say that if I didn't write the book, I would purchase a copy for my mom, who's still with us today, to, leave me all the answers. I would purchase one for my daughter. I would do one myself. I said it's very generational. You can find the book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Those are the two best places to get it. They are selling it as well on eBay, although I don't suggest that because those are private sellers, and basically they're just repurchasing the book, and they're unfortunately jacking up the price a little bit. So, but definitely Amazon or Barnes & Nobles are the two best bets.
Excellent. Very good. And then do you have a website yourself or some social media where people are able to connect with you online?
Yes, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter. Everything is my name. It All Matters, The Parent Project, Cathy Cardio, Cathy with a C. They can find me any of those places. Also, Outskirts Press, Cathy Cardio. They can find me there.
Excellent. Very good. And do you have some final thoughts for us? We just have a couple minutes left. Something positive that you would like our listeners to remember and sort of live by?
You can't get what you want if you don't know what it is that you want. So you really need to sit back. I know life is crazy busy for most people. We're on autopilot. Take a few moments, sit down, re-examine your life, and figure out exactly what you want, not what anybody else wants. You have to live your life and then go for it. It could be something simple to the next person, and that's okay. It could be something totally outrageous, but it's your life. And I want everybody to be happy with the life that they're living.
Excellent. Very good. Those are very wise words. So thank you so much, Cathy Cardio, for being a guest on our show today. I will say I've not had a guest like you before. No one's really talked about sort of the aspect that you had with your parents, your grandparents, and your great-grandparents. So I really appreciate you making time to discuss that with us today.
Right. I know you do a lot of medical stuff, and there is a whole chapter on your medical history because a lot of people don't know that. It might be like, oh, my great aunt, had this kind of cancer or whatever. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of, little stuff that people don't realize. So it gives by answering the questions, you get an entire medical history from your family.
Excellent. Very good. Those are very good points as well. And what I'll do is add this to our show notes and blogs online. And that way people will be able to reference, click on the links, and get some more ideas for what they can do in their own project. So again, thank you so much, Cathy, for being a guest on our show today.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you. And you've been listening to Simple Health Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Emran. Connect with us online. You can visit our website, simplehealthradio.com. We'll have this episode online, as well as the show notes, blogs, and links, so you can learn more about this book and some other similar projects. And I look forward to having you all on a future episode.